Riddle me this. White man kills 8 people in Atlanta, 6 of whom are Asian, 2 are white, injures a Hispanic, but the Biden administration has decided this is a hate crime against Asian Americans. Never mind the whites and Hispanics, I guess they're just flies.
Vicious hate crimes against Asian Americans who've been attacked, harassed, blamed, and scapegoated. At this very moment, so many of them are fellow Americans. They're on the front lines of this pandemic trying to save lives. And still, they're forced to live in fear for their lives just walking down streets in America.
The shootings took place as violent hate crimes and discrimination against Asian Americans has risen dramatically over the last year and more.
So the Biden administration and the media have decided this is a hate crime against Asian Americans, right?
Right now, the U.S. is seeing a startling rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans. Police attribute almost all of those crimes to the coronavirus pandemic.
Unfortunately, anti-Asian sentiment is not new, but since COVID-19, there's been a rise in the number of racist attacks against Asians.
Celebrations are marking the Lunar New Year, the year of the ox, and that includes fireworks. Artists in China threw molten iron against a wall to create these effects. The pandemic, though, has again put a damper on most festivities. And in this country, what should be a celebratory time coincides with a disturbing surge of racist attacks against Asian Americans.
The surge in hate crimes against Asian Americans only getting worse, and some of the accounts are extremely violent.
Now, days later, a man kills 10 people in Boulder, Colorado. He is from Syria, an immigrant, and posted on Facebook, "I may not be a perfect Muslim, but Islam is perfect." He also told friends and family that he felt discriminated against because he was Muslim. But the media has decided, well, we need to wait before we determine what the motive was.
New developments from the investigation into the deadly rampage in Boulder, Colorado. Police say the suspect did use the semi-automatic weapon he bought legally just 6 days before the attack, and that he engaged officers in a gun battle when they arrived. But still tonight, no word on a motive or why he allegedly opened fire on that supermarket.
Unfortunately, not much about the motive, Brooke, but we are getting a lot more details about the suspect, who authorities have identified as 21-year-old Ahmed Alissa. We understand that he immigrated to this country from Syria in 2002, that he and his family have been living in the Arvada area since 2014. Now, my colleague Blake Ellis actually spoke to the older brother of the suspected gunman, who said that he may have suffered from mental illness and that he was apparently bullied in high school.
According to the warrant, the suspect, Ahmed Alissa, bought an assault weapon less than a week before the shooting. He purchased it on March 16th. The 21-year-old was born in Syria, but he grew up in the United States. His brother told the Daily Beast he believes Alissa is mentally ill. He described him as paranoid and antisocial, and he says he was bullied in high school. As of this morning, officials here in Boulder have not yet released a motive behind the supermarket massacre.
Elder here for Birch Gold. As one of the top dealers of physical precious metals in the United States, Birch Gold Group helps Americans diversify their savings with gold and silver. Customers can purchase for physical possession or convert a portion of their IRA or 401k into an IRA backed by physical precious metals. And for the first time since Obama's first term, we are facing a democratically controlled White House, Senate, and House. Sounds like a lot of tax and spending to me. Get ready for more so-called quantitative easing. Now, how does that affect your investment? How does that affect the strength of your portfolio? So, contact Birch Gold Group to request a free info kit on physical precious metals. See if diversifying into gold makes sense for you. This comprehensive 20-page kit reveals how gold and silver can protect your savings and how you can legally move your IRA or 401k out of risky stocks and bonds into a precious metals IRA. To get your no-cost, no-obligation kit, text Larry to 474747. That's text Larry to 474747. Now, I watch a lot of CNN, so you don't have to. After the shootings in Atlanta and in Boulder, CNN had a special. It was called afraid, fear in America's communities of color. Now, there has been a rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans, and it should be taken seriously. But the dirty little secret is that the greater percentage of hate crimes against Asian Americans is committed by blacks, as was the case when an innocent Asian American was pummeled to the ground by this black suspect.
New today, the NYPD has arrested the man accused in that vicious attack on a Filipino woman. The state released Brandon Elliott from prison 2 years ago. Officials say he's out on lifetime parole for killing his own mother. He stabbed her to death almost 2 decades ago. Elliott had been living in a hotel that serves as a homeless shelter near the scene of the attack. Police charged him with 5 counts, including felony assault and as a hate crime. He was seen on surveillance camera on Monday, kicking and stomping the 65-year-old woman very near Times Square.
I recently interviewed Colin Flaherty, not the most popular white man in America, you know. He has written extensively about black crime. Colin Flaherty is my guest, author of the book White Girl Bleed a Lot. Beat Whitey Night? Tell us about that.
Well, that's the craziest story in the whole book. Des Moines, Iowa State Fair. 3 nights in a row, groups of black people are beating white people in and out of the fair. Finally, the reporters go to the uniformed spokeswoman, Lori Loverato. They say, Lori, what's up with all this violence? Are there black people attacking white people? She said, yes. The next day, she got fired for telling the truth about racial violence. So really, the big question is, if that's what it's like in Des Moines, Iowa, what do you think the rest of the country's like?
Colin, you talk about something that happened, I believe, in Milwaukee, where hundreds of black people were targeting whites?
You know, that happened just a few weeks after the Iowa State Fair, at the Milwaukee State Fair. Actually, Milwaukee has like several incidents that fit that description, but I think the one you're talking about is, it was the Wisconsin State Fair. People in and out of the fair were attacking the fairgoers, attacking police. On this case, there are 911 tapes, which I have links to in the book, and you can hear the panicked callers in the fairground, in the parking lot, saying, "Oh, you know, my mom just got punched in the face. They're only choosing white people to beat." It was a pretty ugly mess.
Colin, why, in your opinion, do the media underreport this stuff?
Boy, you know, Larry, I don't know. It's, you know what, we got to get a psychiatrist in here and get some of these LA Times reporters on the couch and ask them. But I just keep showing how they do it, why they do it. Well, you know, you know what? I would ask you, because I think you probably know better than I do. You're closer to some of these reporters than I am.
Well, Colin, I remember an incident a few years ago on October, on Halloween night in Long Beach, where I think it was 3 or 4 white girls went to one of these mansions, haunted house mansions, and got attacked by 20 or 30 blacks. And the LA Times, I don't think they wrote a word about it for almost a whole week.
You know what? I wrote about that incident in the book, and thanks for reminding me of that. That's a good example of it. Why, you know, how did it become normal? How did black mob violence become normal? I don't know. Nobody asked me if it was normal.
Well, on this topic, the topic of black violence, how black people target Asian people, how they've been doing it for years, how I've been documenting it. You know, it's funny. Some Asian people don't even want to acknowledge it.
Colin, I have in my baby brown libertarian fingers the New York Times article that I've just now quoted from. And I'm looking in vain for the race of the assailant. This is a very long article. I see the race of the Asian Americans, and they often describe that and what countries they came from and so forth, but not a word about the race of the perps. Pourquoi?
You know, it's just amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's even gotten to the presidential level where he talks about hate crimes against Asians, concocting this image of bands of white people roaming the country attacking Asian people. But what we've seen all over the country is just the opposite. For example, in San Francisco, there was a headline in the paper, San Francisco's dirty little secret, black on Asian violence. Tons and tons of stories about black on Asian violence in San Francisco, Oakland, Sacramento, Philly, New York, Baltimore, all over the country. It's been happening for a long time. My own favorite, when I wrote about this, and don't make the black kids angry, was 5,000 Asian refugees from Nepal, came to the United States, landed in Rochester, New York, And from the minute those 5,000 Asian refugees took up residence in the ghetto of Rochester, they were tormented, harassed, scorned, beaten, murdered, robbed. This went on for 5 years. So finally, the police chief said, well, Asian immigrants are just going to have to learn how to defend themselves when they come here. It's astonishing.
Wow. I'm looking at the New York Times article, quote, in April, a man doused a 39-year-old woman with a caustic chemical as she took out the trash in front of her home in Brooklyn, badly burning her face, hands, and neck. In July, 2 men lit an 89-year-old woman on fire near her Brooklyn home, after which hundreds of New Yorkers marched in protest. Here's the next sentence, Colin. Neither was classified as a hate crime, end of quote.
You know, I don't like the classification hate crime either, because it vastly understates the amount of racial violence in this country. To have a hate crime, you have to sprinkle some words and leave some evidence. But even more powerful than that are the patterns. When we see who is attacking Asian people, we know who is attacking Asian people in the subways of New York, on the streets of Brooklyn. All these stories you talk about, almost all of them have videos, and every time you mention it, it's like, yeah, I could see the 2 black guys setting that Asian person on fire, the 89-year-old Asian woman on fire, all on video. So it's not like we're sitting here, guessing or anything, but the pattern is overwhelming.
Now take a look at these DOJ stats on hate crime. In 2019, of the 6,406 known hate crime offenders, 52.3% were white, 23.9% black or African American, 6.6% were groups made up of individuals of various races. Regarding ethnicity, 33.1% were in the ethnic category not Hispanic or Latino, 10% were Hispanic or Latino. Bottom line, whites at roughly 60% of the population commit roughly 50% of the hate crimes, disproportionately low when compared to their percentage of the population. Blacks at roughly 13% of the population commit disproportionately more of the hate crimes compared to their population in America. Now, what about offenders of hate crimes specifically against Asian Americans? Here's what the stats tell us. The Bureau of Justice Statistics report finds blacks commit a disproportionate number of hate crimes against Asians. About 28% of violent offenders against Asian victims are black, compared to only 24% of Asians and about the same percentage of white offenders. Afraid, says CNN. Communities of color living in fear. CNN, do you know what communities of color really live in fear of? The lousy education they're getting K through 12.
Kids in Newark schools face challenges that many of their suburban counterparts do not, including tough home lives, neighborhood crime, and any number of political and ideological battles among the adults with vested interest in the school system. It's no wonder statistics from a study by the Advocates for Children in New Jersey shows chronic absenteeism at epidemic levels, not only in Newark, but statewide.
In tonight's Education Alert, 8 Baltimore City schools have been labeled persistently dangerous. These schools were picked by the state based on the number of student suspensions. 11 News education reporter Tim Tootin joins us from the newsroom this evening. And Tim, these aren't suspensions for showing up late for class, are they?
Not at all, Stan. This is really an issue of student safety and school safety. Students at these schools were suspended for serious crimes like arson, weapons, and assault.
Philadelphia schools' district-wide test results show that when it comes to math, science, and literacy, tests don't crack 50% proficiency. That's according to performance testing results district-wide.
The Chicago public school system is horrible, to say the least.
I had gone through 13 years of schooling, and I had never read a book.
When I went off to college, I wasn't prepared at all.
Our communities that need the resources the most to get students to college are the ones that lack it.
Battling back against a state takeover. New questions tonight about whether East Cleveland really failed its 3rd consecutive state report card. This after News 5 obtained documents just filed in the district's case against the state over that takeover. Our Tara Molina has been investigating the controversy over state control of schools for months now. So, Tara, you went straight to the Ohio Department of Education tonight.
With East Cleveland's failing grade, Rob, in question, the state control of the district, the stakes are high.
But no, let's talk about white terrorists, shall we?
Being a black man in America isn't easy. The hunt is on. And you're the prey. All I'm saying is, survive. All right?
Sigh. And don't get me started on urban homicides.
Deasha Purnell was shot last night, and still no arrests have been made. Jasmine Payute is live outside police headquarters with a plea from her grandmother. Jasmine?
All right, Kay, these numbers are startling to say the least. Monday night's victim is not only the 194th homicide victim, Deasha Purnell is also the 105th child to be shot this year and the 16th child to be shot and killed.
A Baltimore police officer some dozen years on the force says the spike in murders and gun crimes here is the direct result of a coordinated police work slowdown.
Why do you think that there is a great increase in the murder rate and the number of shootings in this town?
Officers stop being proactive.
A good news, bad news scenario is playing out when it comes to crime in the city of Detroit.
According to the FBI's Crime in the United States report, violent crimes are down 3% year to year, but here's the catch. Detroit still has the highest violent crime rate of any major U.S. city.
Another violent night in the city. A man was shot and killed inside a Chinese restaurant.
And the number of homicides in the city is staggering at this point. 362 people have been killed in Philadelphia just this year. That is 6 more than all of 2019, and we still have 3 months to go.
At 5:30, the city's crime statistics for July paint a disturbing picture. Chicago saw a 51% increase in murders over the last year.
WGN's Rob Sneed is live on the lakefront with the latest. Rob.
Yeah, community activists I spoke with told me that they're disturbed by that number. They say the violence is out of control, and folks just need to put the guns down.
So hey, CNN, where's your special on the fact that the #1 cause of preventable death for young white men is accidents, like car accidents or drowning accidents, whereas the #1 cause of preventable death for young black men, homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black man. CNN, where's your special on the fact that last year in St. Louis, 90% of the homicides, black on black, even though the city is about 45% black? CNN, where's your special on Baltimore, where last year, roughly 400 homicides, 90% black on black in a city that's 65% black? Where's the special on all of that? Doesn't fit the script, does it? Be afraid, black people. Be afraid, people of color, because CNN says you should be. It is bull. Don't let them manipulate you. Now, we have been demonetized, as you know, by YouTube. So to continue getting me unfiltered and on demand, just go to LarryTube.com. That's LarryTube.com, because we've got a country to save. And I'll see you next time.